down.
Hi, I'm Eric. I found my phone and welcome to another video. Today, we are going to do something a little different. We are going to be ranking the albums of Alanis Morissette. If you've been a long time watcher of the channel, like a year or so, you would have seen me go basically through Alanis's entire catalog. And I really had only listened to Jagged Little Pill before, like last year, and now I've listened to all her albums, and like I reacted to all of them, and I talked about them all in those videos. And now it's time, it feels right to really just talk about which ones are my favorites, which ones are my least favorites. They all are great albums, that's a disclaimer. She has not made a bad record ever, and I don't see her ever making a bad record in the future. So, like, these are just gonna be my opinions, also just in terms of, like, albums I listen to more regularly, or songs from those albums that I vibe with more, or the sentiments, or the writing, just all of that. Like, yeah, I think it's gonna be a really good time. Another disclaimer is that, again, I listened to all of these except for Jagged Little Pill for the first time in the past year-ish. So I didn't grow up like listening to all these albums as they came out. I didn't witness these eras. Like, her career started before I was born. So like I couldn't really. And so I don't have like that sense of nostalgia like for a lot of these records. Some of them have sounds that are nostalgic, but I do want to clarify, hey, I don't have the same experiences with this record that you might have because I didn't grow up with them. And so if I, attack a record or just say something that doesn't seem as, amazing about a record that like is one of your favorites, please understand that we're in different perspectives and we grew up with different experiences and we've had different experiences with this music. And that's what's really cool about music, is that we all are able to have these unique experiences. So this is the top 8 albums from Alanis Morissette. I'm including Feast on Scraps in here because I think it's 8 songs and I think of very different than Under Rug Swept. So for me, they're going to be separate entities. And so if you see Feast on Scraps at one point where you don't see Under Rug Swept, that's why, because I feel like they are very different. Also, disclaimer, if you've heard Alanis' discography, she talks about a lot of mature things like intimacy, assault, mental health things, and like, hating on oneself and all of these things. So if you feel like you need to step away from this video or not watch the rest of this video, like, this is your opportunity to do so because I don't want to re-traumatize you. Anyway, let's get into it. So at the bottom of my list at number 8 is, unfortunately, and I feel bad about doing this a lot, is Such Pretty Forks in the Road. Now, I really like this album. Like, I enjoy it every time I listen to it. And I think the reason why I don't vibe with the album as much is that I don't listen to many songs, or really any, outside of the album itself. Like, I listen to Ablaze, and that's pretty much, like, the only one I, like, listen to, like, by itself. Maybe A Reasons I Drink occasionally, or A Losing the Plot, or something like that. But for me, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's just an album I need to grow into. And I'm like 22 right now. I don't think I have the worries and the concerns much that like Alanis has at this like mid-40s range. So I really can't. And I feel like it isn't fair for me to be like, oh yeah, it's like her worst project, because it's not her worst written project at all. Like, I think a lot of the songs like have a lot of heart in it, and like it was my first album in 8 years, and I think it shows in the way that it was developed over time. Like, some of these songs were previewed years before, and I think it shows that there's been like a lot of thought put into it. And instrumentally, I love a good piano. Like, it's a good time. It's just also like just a sad time also. Like, there's not really a lot of that relief and that breathing of like, this is joy. Like, we get that from Ablaze, and we get a little bit of that from Nemesis, like towards the end, I feel like. But altogether, I feel like it's just an album that, like, if I'm really like feeling a mood, like, I'll listen to it. But it's not one that I'm like, like, let's get into like these like lyrics that hit me deeply. I think it's just because I haven't gotten to those experiences that would have hit me deeply relevant to the songs. Like there's a couple of, experiences that are relatable there. But in terms of having things like postpartum depression, which I probably will never have, I guess, or really just like a court case, which I think is the inspiration for Reckoning, or like being on my knees praying to a goddess, that hasn't been me yet. So like I think I have to wait for those experiences to either come to fruition or just accept that I'm going to have a different experience than her. Like for me, this album is like good. It's good and it's definitely well written, and like I know it's some other people's like jams and it's a really great record. It's just not the album I'm going to turn to when I think about Alanis's discography. At 7th, we have So-Called Chaos. I've heard that a lot of people think this is her worst written album. I probably would agree. That's unfortunate. But yeah, it's not even a bad album. Like I enjoy the album. It's like has like some bops, like Me's and My B's, A-V-Z Steps, like everything. Those songs in particular stick out in my head. Doth I Protest Too Much? Also like, and it's a 10-song album, so it's not going to be long. But like the fact that I could name like half the album as like songs I enjoy listening to, like shows that like I couldn't really put it at the bottom. I felt bad. I was like, those songs can't deserve that. But the songs I didn't mention, a lot of them have that like listing format that I think is a recurring mannerism in terms of how Alanis writes. And something I liked about Such Pretty Forks in the Road is that we kind of steered away from that and didn't just do listing. But here, like, we get some lists and it's okay. And we also get the same like writing format for Out Is Through, Excuses, and Spineless, which I'm okay with that being a recurring thing. Like, she was chugging out an album. Like, that was her 3rd album in 3 years. So, like, she was really maximizing, if that makes sense. So, I understand that some of that can get sloppy, but I really like the songs. That's the problem. If I'm going to say, oh, it's like her worst written, like, sure, but like, am I going to really enjoy it? Yes. So, yeah, I really liked the album. Like, and as you can see, like, this is second to bottom, and I'm saying I really like this album. You can tell that I'm going to really like the rest of the albums that come up. Like, I really enjoyed it. It's just also like a small showing, and while I do like the songs I named, like, I don't listen to them as much as like I could, and I also feel like the songs I didn't mention are just like, they're fine. Spineless, I really don't like. I still don't like it. I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it's just like she's saying the things that she shouldn't do so that she doesn't actually do them. And I'm like, sure, okay, but if I want to sing along to the words, I need it to be something that's healthy for me. And so, for me, So-Called Chaos, like, it's a good time. She's like pretty much vibing. And like, yeah, I have a good time. At 6th, we have Havoc and Bright Lights. Now, I would say Havoc and Bright Lights and So-Called Chaos are pretty much in similar footing. I edge Havoc and Bright Lights a little more up just because there's more songs that I personally enjoy on it. Like Lens, Guardian, Woman Down, Receive, some others that I'm forgetting. Empathy. Oh my god. Like, all of those songs I just mentioned, I've had like very good experiences, like very distinctly good experiences while listening to those songs in particular. And I really like that. And I think those are like the higher highs that I get than I would get on like So-Called Chaos. The problem I have with Havoc and Bright Lights and why it doesn't go further is that there are some other songs on there that I just really don't care for at all. Like, I don't care for the title track Havoc. Celebrity has definitely gone down for me. Like, I feel like on the album, especially on the songs I didn't mention before as like highlights, that she is trying to make it too like, I don't know, I don't want to say it's like too political, because I don't think it's too political in any sense, and I don't think too political is really a bad thing. I think it's her trying to derive some universal societal truth, and I don't know if her perspective on that is something that like I personally either agree with or I feel like is like taking into account everything. And yeah, I don't know. Like, for example, like Celebrity is just like pushing it to the extreme. And I understand that like to push something to the extreme like really like shows the flaws in it. And I think that celebrity culture does have a lot of flaws in it. But like, it's just like, gets very much a lot. And yeah, I don't know. I also think the song like Numb, Havoc, there's stuff that we've done before, like in terms of both sonics and in lyric and messages and all that. Like, we've had those kind of things before and they were done better for me. Like, Numb is like, we feel like we're retracting into old stuff from like So-Called Chaos and Under Egg Swept and like all that stuff. But like, I don't really care for that production as much because we also got that more on Flavors of Entanglement. Like, it doesn't bring much new to the table. And Havoc, oh my god, Havoc brings nothing new to the table for me. Like, I feel like Havoc is like trying to be on Such Pretty Forks in the Road, but Such Pretty Forks in the Road reinvents it and makes it better. And it also is trying to be on like a supposed former infatuation junkie, and it's not. It's like, it's trying to straddle the line. And I think one of the issues is, as you have told me in the comments below, about like how they had this album done a lot with Guy Sigsworth, and then they had to redo parts of the record. And I don't really know which parts were redone, which parts were more original. Like, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. But for me, I'm like, sometimes it was paying too much tribute to earlier works without really trying to stand on its own 2 feet. And I think the album succeeds when it doesn't try to do that. Like, where it goes with sounds that Alanis enjoys, and you can tell she's really vibing as she sings on the songs. And it also like feels unique. Like, I feel like Receive in particular, that's a song I've vibed to the entire year. And like, it's a song that I like personally just thoroughly enjoy. And it feels like nothing out of her catalog. Like, it feels like it's Alanis, but it doesn't feel like I could get that same sensation from another song. And I think that's where she stands out and for the best on this project. At 5th, we have Under Rug Swept. Now, this is where it gets intense. Like, I was getting very much like, where is everything going to be? At first, like, before I like re-listened to Under Rug Swept, I re-listened to all her albums like this past week. But Under Rug Swept, at first I thought it was just going to be at the bottom. And then I listened to it and I was like, no, this can't. It just can't. I like this album. I don't listen to it much at all. And I realized that's something I need to personally work on doing because I forgot. I think I listened to it in like September of last year, and then I had schoolwork and I forgot about the project. It's a really good album. This album, I like it because it's very like, continues like a theme very much. Like, it's all about like, about all the things that she's like pushed under the rug. Like, you know, the feelings associated with her like assault, the feelings associated with like, you know, a man that hurt her, the feelings associated with like what she actually just wants in a relationship, the things she wished she could say to a narcissist, like all of those things. Like, it makes it feel right. Now, there's some other songs in the album, like You Owe Me Nothing in Return and Utopia, that just really don't do it for me. You Owe Me Nothing in Return is probably one of my least favorite, along with Spineless. I feel like those 2 songs are just like, ugh, like, they're just not for me. And that's okay. Under Rug Swept is nice in that we get a lot of consistency about how she wants to talk about like her life and everything. But we also get to explore like different ways of sonically dealing with that. Like, Hands Clean and Flinch are kind of like 2 different ways of dealing with probably the same person in my like ears and like my perspective. I feel like they are roughly the same person. And Hands Clean is very much like, we're going for a song that sonically does sound like a radio hit, but still describes that assault. And also, like, we have Flinch, which is very much like feeling those feelings much later. And I really appreciate that. I really appreciate this album. And I think it does some cool things and makes her go off into a direction that I feel like she continues for a lot of the rest of her career, and makes her more than just a jagged little pill or supposed former infatuation junkie. It makes her more than a one hit or a 1 album wonder. Like, this kind of catapults her into the next phase of her career. Under Rug Swept also has some really great songs like So Unsexy and Precious Illusions that like I forget that they're bops. I really did. And yeah, I feel like I should come back to this album. I don't know how much I listened to it as a whole album, but again, it is like a album that I feel like is very concise and makes sure that you are aware that like she's going through it, but she also like is making bops as she does that. At number 4, we have Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie. Now, this is an album that I had to fight off the nostalgia that I had because this is my first like video that did really well on my YouTube channel, my reaction to this. And so I had to make sure that I wasn't like being, oh, I just really like this album. And I thought it might be one of my like absolute favorites. And I realized that I don't. It's not my favorite. But it is like top half for sure. Because I feel like this album, it's very long, first of all. But there are so many highs on it that I think are much higher highs than Under Rug Swept that I had to notch it a little bit above it. For example, So Pure, obsessed with that. I've been obsessed with that for a whole year. I really enjoy that song. I think it's a bop. I feel like it takes me back to the 90s and as if I was like a 20-year-old in the 90s. I'm not. I was like 3 months old when it turned to 2000. So yeah, we're dealing with things differently. And I really just like that song in particular. But I also like songs like Thank You. I forgot how good Thank You was. I Was Hoping. Like, there's so many songs on here that I like as like individual songs and I listen to them and I think that escalates how I feel like the rest of the album is. And there are a lot of songs that I will listen to and I'm like, yes, this is a good song. Like we have Front Row, Would Not Come, Joining You, like Your Congratulations, Are You Still Mad? Like there's a lot of songs on here that are like just good mood setters. And some of the singles that I reacted to from non like albums, but also from Alanis, you can tell when a song was made during this era. And I think that's pretty iconic. I feel like it is such a mood, this album. It definitely gets you in this mood. And it's also like an hour-long mood that it allows you to really just enjoy the project. And I know I personally do. It does carry that nostalgia again. So like for me, do I know what all the songs are about? Really no, because it's 17 songs. I'm not going to get to understanding all of them in full detail. But I do like it, and it definitely is a mood. I don't always turn to that mood, but when I do, I really enjoy it. We're now entering the top 3, which I'm very excited about. And at number 3, we have the one and the only Jagged Little Pill. I know it might be controversial to not put this at the top. I understand that. But for me, I really like this album. I really do. And does it have that benefit of, oh, I heard it before all these other albums? Yes, of course it does. But it also, like, is just such a mood. Like, All I Really Want has become a song I can listen to at any time, and it's really good. I also love The Hand in My Pocket, You Ought to Know, obviously, Not the Doctor. Like, I've already ranked the songs on this album, and some of those may have changed a little bit, and some of them surprised me, like Right Through You and Perfect still always randomly will hit me. Like, this album's really good, and I think for it being her first international release, it sounds really good, and I really appreciate that, and yeah. I really enjoy this project. I feel like I can't say many things else about it. I just think it's a good time. You already know what Jagged Little Pill sounds like. It sounds really good, and like, it's just such a mood setter. It's such a cohesive project. And like, it just is the mood and deserves the Album of the Year award that it received. At number 2, this is my most controversial thing. I put Feast on Scraps here. And that's why I had to put Under Rug Swept and Feast on Scraps in 2 separate categories. I really enjoy every song on Feast on Scraps. Like, deeply like every song. And it pains me that it's not like a studio album. Like, it's a CD and DVD package. I feel like it should classify as its own project. I get that they were recorded during the Under Rug Swept sessions, or at least written during that time. But like, it touches on so many things that I feel like can't fit on the Under Rug stuff, because I feel like the Under Rug stuff is such a vibe of, these are things I wish I would have said, but I swept them under the rug. Like, that's where I get that idea for the album. Whereas Feast on Scraps is really like, these are things I really want to talk about, and like I combine them together. It almost is really a singles compilation, but to me, it goes in so many different directions, but still feels uniquely Alanis. Like, we start with Fear of Bliss, bop. Then we go to Bent for You, my least favorite on the project, still a bop. But then we get into Sorry to Myself, which I needed her to apologize to herself already. Please, thank you. And then we get into Sister Blister, bop. Then we go into Offer, still a bop. Like, chill bop, but still a bop. And then you go into Unprodigal Daughter, still a bop. It's even, I would say it's probably the biggest bop on there. And then we go into Simple Together, which also, like, it's on the lower end of the project, but, like, it's still a song I really enjoy. And then you end it with Purgatoring, which gets obsessively stuck in my head, and I just really enjoy it. And then we get into the Hands Clean acoustic, which Hands Clean is still a good song. It's unfortunate, again, that most people didn't really take note of, like, the serious nature of the message. But yeah, it's such a good project. Like, I could name all the songs in a row rather easily, and I can't do that with most projects of hers, like, except for number one. But, like, yeah, it's very easy for me to remember it because I like listening to all the songs on it. I really like it. One might call it not an album. I say is 4 seconds shorter than So-Called Chaos, so it is definitely an album. So yeah, I think it's such a good project. I don't know. I just really like it. And I think if someone were to be like, what album should I get into to listen to Alanis? I wouldn't say Feast on Scraps. I would probably say Jagged Little Pill. But to me, I'm like, if I want to talk about what Alanis was thinking in the early 2000s, just listen to Feast on Scraps. It's more accessible, I believe, than So-Called Chaos and Under Rug Swept. It's better written than So-Called Chaos. And, like, it's just a good time. Like, you get some of that relief that you don't get on some other albums from her. I mean, I think you get some relief on some parts. But for me, Feast on Scraps, like, she's talking about, you know, heavy topics of, like, oh, I feel like I'm constantly having to offer myself to other people. I need to apologize to myself. I am done bending for other people. Like, on these topics, oh, I'm busy being unoppressed. Like, there's just so many good sounds on it and good messages on it. It's a feel-good project. It was So-Called Chaos before So-Called Chaos was there, but it's done much better. And I just really enjoy it. I have a good time with it. It's really a fully good time. If you haven't checked out Feast on Scraps, but you consider yourself an Alanis fan, you should definitely check out Feast on Scraps. It's really good. And at number one, we have Flavors of Entanglement. Now, I don't think a lot of people are going to put that here. I don't. Some people might. It's my favorite Alanis album, and I think I knew it was probably going to be my favorite Alanis album when I heard it. And that's because of Sonics. Sonically, this album is beautiful. It's very late 2000s, and that's, like, the music that I have nostalgia for. So I have to fight that nostalgia to, like, compare it to others, but I'm like, I can't make the songs not, like, sound good. I really just can't. And I love how we take some of these writing tropes that she's done, like the listing, the talking about her past, dealing with breakups and stuff like that, and we get it into this sound that is unique to this album. Like, Havoc and Bright Lights have some of that, but it did get channeled into that rock. And I know I probably consider myself more of a person who leans into, like, left of center pop and that kind of stuff. Like, alt pop, indie pop, like, indie rock a little bit. Like, it just depends. And for me, this album is just like, oh my god, it's just so good. Like, I think of Incomplete as, like, a really good song. Like, The Guy Who Leaves Straight Jacket, Orchid, On the Tequila, like everything, like Madness, like there's also so much going on. And I think, especially if you listen to the deluxe album, like you're just going to get so many different sounds. Each song sounds distinct, which is really nice. I really like that when it doesn't feel like I can get it confused with something else. And that's an issue that I have with some other like projects, like the fact that Such Pretty Forks in the Road, I could probably get a couple of them confused, or Havoc and Bright Lights, I probably could, or even Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie or Jagged Little Pill. There are a couple of songs that I'm like, these sound a little similar. And for me, Flavors of Entanglement, all of it sounds different, and it sounds so unique to this album. And I know, I guess commercially didn't do as successful, but like I don't care. It's a bopping album. And is it long? Yeah, if you listen to the whole deluxe. But like there's so many songs that I feel like I can pick from it and be like, I want to listen to this. And I do. Like there's maybe a couple that I don't like. I actually think that start of the album is pretty weak. I'm not a Citizen of the Planet fan. I really don't like that song at all. Like again, it's more the Havoc and Bright Lights of taking something like bigger than her and trying to make it so she feels like a dominant voice in that. And I don't really care for that all that much. Like I like her being political. I think it's very interesting and also just important to insert like some sort of social justice into a lot of your music. But I also don't know if Alanis is the best at doing it. Like it just doesn't feel in touch with reality. I feel like it's kind of hard when you become like commercially successful since you were like 20 and you've been in a celebrity status. It's very hard for, I feel like, someone who does have a lot of financial security and really doesn't deal with much oppression otherwise. Like, I mean, as a woman, obviously she does, and dealing with mental health, like, obviously. I feel like as a cis, straight passing white woman, like, I don't know if she's necessarily always the best at being that kind of person. And I like that we probably vote similarly, but also, I don't know. Her political messages don't always necessarily impact me the way I want them to. But the album overall is just not about that. It's really about going through this whole breakup. And I mean, was it a breakup or a divorce? I don't know if it was. Did they get actually married? I don't really know. I was like 8 when this album came out, so it wasn't gonna be something that was on my radar. But I do really like this album. I like that it's a step in a different direction from the previous work, but still hold something, you know, great. And the sonically, it just is up my alley, and I can't make the songs not be enjoyable. I think also because it's about like a breakup, it's not like I go through breakups regularly or anything like that, but Red is my favorite Taylor Swift album. So I don't know, for me, I guess those types of albums that really are centered about that, and also dealing with the emotions of a breakup through several different sonic mediums, I feel like is just very nice. It feels very appealing to hear different sonic ways of tackling a similar topic, and it's not boring ever. This album is never boring, and I just fully appreciate that. With that said, we have ranked all of Alanis' albums, and I know I probably spent way too long doing this, and I know I didn't include her first 2 releases that weren't internationally released before Jagged Little Pill, but I haven't listened to those, and it didn't make sense for me to include them because they're not really like available on Spotify. Like, it seems like it's very clear that they don't want me to cover that in terms of like her regular discography. But I might listen to those in the future. I'm definitely going to listen to more Alanis in the future. This is not like the end of Alanis content. But I am very happy that I got to I really just sat back and listened to all of her albums over the past few days. And it's been really nice. And she is such a talented songwriter and like singer and all of that. And I'm really happy that she's shared that love for her work with the world. And just all the struggles that she faces. Like, she is a inspiration for a lot of confessional songwriters, and I personally, for one, as a confessional songwriter, really appreciate that. I really enjoy her work, and I hope that we get another album sooner than 8 years. It could happen. But I also just really enjoy listening to her with what I have. Like, she's released whole 8 projects for me, and there's a lot of work in there, and there's a lot of like good music in there. What did you think of my ranking? I know you didn't agree with it. You probably just didn't. Like, please let me know instead what your ranking is down in the comments below. What was my most offensive thing that I said? What was my least offensive thing? Like, do you dislike more the fact of what albums got into the bottom or which albums got to the top? I think that's an interesting thing, because I feel like everyone likes to hate on rankings, but like, it's always, did you place it too high or did you place it too low? And I think that's interesting, whether you think it's overrated or underrated. Also, let me know if you want me to make any videos ranking other artists' discographies. I'm looking at doing Fiona Apple's and Mitski's since I am fully complete on their discographies. But let me know if you're interested in those. And also, yeah, just let me know if there's any other Alanis content you want me to react to in the near future. If you like this video, please like it, comment down below what you'd like me to react or listen to next. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already and you'd like to be. And thanks for watching. This is TurtleStormer. Catch you later.
It's storming turtles from out of the sky. Turtles, don't need to know why. Smile big, open your eyes. It's storming turtles from out